what this talk is not going to be is it's not going to be a story of grit and determination and how to work against all the odds and arrive in life for two reasons. One, because there are millions of other TED Talks and books and movies which can do this better. And second, I think I'm far from arrived in life. There is still miles to go. So not an expert on that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about my experiences, situations that I was faced with, and then what did I learn out of those, right? And the story actually starts from here, in this very campus, where I came after my graduation to do my MBA in 2010. And this was first time when I was moving out of the comfort of home, away from my parents. And I thought it will be very exciting. And I came here and it actually was very exciting. When friends became family, they were your support system. Here is where we started to work together, and we had group assignments. Now, group assignments were more like we had to do research, we had to study a company or given a case study and present our findings in front of the entire class. And one of the aspects of that presentation would always be graphs and charts and a pictorial representation of whatever findings are. And this was initially very challenging for me because for me to visualize everything in one graph was kind of difficult. But then I worked with my group mates. They took up the slides for the graphs and charts. I took up the rest of the work, which was putting the whole thing together, deciding the flow, working on presentation, and do the research bit. And initially, while doing all of this, I felt that while others had the opportunity to look at graphs and charts and go ahead with the presentation, I had to read everything. I couldn't just skim through it. I couldn't just read the headline, like the headers of the presentation, because the software reads everything word by word and line by line. So initially I thought that I'm spending more time in doing this, and others are able to do this in much shorter time. So I think that's not fair. But then exams came. And thankfully I performed above average, because not only I was studying the headings, I was reading the entire case study. I was reading reports, I was reading things, and just because I couldn't look at graphs and charts, I would substitute it with doing more studies of my own, more research of my own, right? And that really helped me. This incident helped me learn two very important things. First is that your IQ is never going to be more than the cumulative IQ of your group. So never think that you're the smartest person and you will do everything or you can do everything. You always need to identify, and this also helped me later when I was heading a team, is that you need to identify the strength of everyone in the group, right? And then play on that, because the strength of your group then becomes the strength of you as a group, as a team lead, how you can bring people together and identify their strengths and work with them on that. So never think that you can do everything. And the second thing that I learned is initially it may appear that the long routes are the most challenging ones. But once you have traveled the long routes, you're prepared for almost everything. So shortcuts might help you win a battle, but it will never help you win a war. And so while I was doing more studying, it paid off. The second incident also happened here in this very campus when companies come for placement. I think for all of us, this, and for me especially, it was one of the most challenging times in life. And this is because I was one of the last ones to get placed. By the time Titan came to campus for recruitment, I think almost 90% of the batch was placed. And I was really scared because recruiters would come and say, hey, your CGPA is above average, you're doing good in GD and other rounds, but this is an uncharted territory for us, so we will get back to you after consulting HR. And eventually I thought they will, but then, so they wouldn't. And Titan came to campus, and I remember the placement officer, Usha ma'am was there then. She told me to go and meet the recruiters. They just want to have a chat with you with absolutely no, like this was not like a standard interview round. So I said, okay, let me go and have a chat. My passion was always technology and computers. I grew up with that. I really like doing it. So the interview revolved around that. What are your passion? What do you enjoy doing? And I said, I like coding, like programming, contributing to open source. And eventually they asked the question, which was like a bouncer. They said, hey, you're appearing for an interview of one of the most reputed jewelry brands in the country, which is Tanishq, right? You're joining the marketing. If suppose you get through, you will be joining the marketing team. And jewelry is the most visual thing that can ever happen. So how are you going to sell? Because the job of a marketing person is, at the end of the day, to make sure that the product sells. So how are you going to sell a jewelry product when you can't even look at it? You don't know its aesthetics, its design, the theme, so how are you going to do it? And of course, it was a very valid question. So I thought for a second, and the answer that I came up with, thankfully it was spontaneous and it worked out, but which I realized also later was very relevant, was that I told them, see, Tanishq would change designs every year. It would change the design theme. It would launch every year a new collection, right? People don't buy Tanishq for that. People buy Tanishq for the trust they have in the brand, for the emotional connect that they have with the brand. People don't buy Titan, just like how people don't buy Titan watches by looking at its design or remember them by one iconic design. They remember Titan by its jingle, right? So if I'm able to establish an emotional connect with the audience through ads, through messaging, through social media, through print ads, in whatever way, if they're able to relate to my story, then I can sell anything. And so they liked the answer. I got the job. And I worked for about 3.5 years with Tanishq, leading their social media and e-commerce. It was very initial days for Tanishq, so had lots of fun doing that. I really, really enjoyed it. Now here, the learning for me in this is, of course, that when we work as a professional later in our life, and also as a student, in anywhere in life, the learning was that if you're able to make someone emotionally invested in your story, I think the job is done. Because people tend to forget what they see, but they will never forget how they feel. So if you're able to make them feel a certain way, it could be for anything, then it doesn't really matter. Everything else is just an extra add-on. So this happened. Tanishq was a wonderful job. Everything was set. Titan was a true Tata ethos culture of working like a family together. And I was in sort of a safe harbor. But then I thought that I need to explore more, learn more, and maybe step out of my comfort zone. So, like a reckless young guy, I quit Tanishq without a job, thinking that I'll figure it out. People nowadays say like to wing it, right? So that's what I did. And then thankfully, Tata click happened. So through friends who were there in Tata's, they referred, because I always wanted to do something in technology, like my passion was technology. So then Tata Click was getting started in 2015. We were almost launching, and the company was gathering the core team who would basically do everything. So it was a true startup culture. And from Bangalore, I moved to Mumbai. And for the first week, I thought, what the hell has happened? Where am I? Because it's a cultural shift. And it's a cultural shift multifold because A, the city has changed, and B, the organizational culture has also changed. Where we would follow a set structure and organization flow of writing emails and getting approvals. In startup, people were just getting up, shouting across the floor and getting things done. Right, and it would happen like in next 1 hour. It would get implemented. Right, and I was like, but where's the documentation? And there was no time for documentation. Right, and instead documentation अगले हफ्ते भेज देना, अभी implementation कर लेते हैं. So I was very like, maybe I've landed, like did a very stupid thing, but actually, thank God that it proved out to be one of the best decisions that I took, because, and it's a suggestion to some of you who are studying here, do work in a startup madness. It will really help you learn a lot. I joined the marketing team, and after a month, my CEO walks up to me and say, hey, listen, I think marketing have people to take care of, but we don't have enough people to take care of customer experience. So from tomorrow, you are in customer experience. And customer experience may not appear to be a very glamorous, very fancy job as branding is. So I was initially very reluctant to join the team, right? And also because I had no clue of what customer experience team does, because I was always a social media branding kind of a person who was doing the promotions, the campaigns, running contests, engagements on social media. So it was very new for me to move to a team about which I had no clue. But then I moved there, and I was initially given the task to set up the social response. When you don't get your parcels delivered to you at time and you go on Facebook and say, what the hell happened? Never gonna shop from you ever again, you frauds. Yeah, that is what I was supposed to answer. And so I said, very good, so where is the team? And my manager said, very good question, why don't you start hiring? And of course, like a startup, we had a limited budget, so everything was frugal. I remember asking to do extra shift, asking people to do extra shift without giving them overtime initially. So I used to take them for a vada pav break. And then in return, I would say, Acha, listen now, the vada pav was nice. So can you do 1 hour extra today? And we have to do all this frugal because of course, budgets are tight. And then I realized when I was interacting with customers and working in building the teams, writing processes and putting down a structure of what kind of team we need to build in future, is that sometimes when you do the work which may not be on the forefront, which may not get you the visibility, but you do your work very well, you learn a lot and you help build a brand in a different way. When I started, we had absolutely no clue of how we will differentiate amongst all the other players, right, in the whole e-commerce space. And I said that if I am given the responsibility of building a team which will handle customer complaints, then I will build the most empathetic team the industry has ever witnessed. And for us, we always started calling customers by name, not by case number, not by, like a missing package complaint. We would always call customers by name. Even in our internal meetings, we would discuss them by name. And what that helped everyone is we started treating everyone, all of our customers, not as another case to be resolved in the given turnaround time, we started empathizing with them, relating with them. I'll tell you a quick story. One of the customer ordered, I think, the top-end Mac for his brother. And I think it was going to be delivered in 7 days. On the 4th day, his younger brother met with an accident and he was no more. And then this customer calls me and say, hey, you know what? The laptop just got delivered. I have put my entire saving to gift it to my younger brother, but he's no more, and I want you to take this and give my money back. Now, the processes say that there is no reason for us to pick it up because the product was not damaged, it was ordered, exact product was delivered. There's no reason for us to do a reverse pickup for this product. But because we were building the most empathetic team where the customer was front and center, we picked it up. The company was willing to bear the loss. We compensated the seller and we picked the product up and processed refund, right? So we ended up making so many stories like that when I was working in customer experience. And I did that for about 5 years. So the learning for me was that, and I read it somewhere, and then when I implemented it, I understood the meaning of it, is that if you have been given a task to sweep the street, you have to sweep it in such a way that God looks down and says, this is the best way to sweep a street. So I did a not so fancy role, but in turn, I was able to talk to customers, understand their pain point, become their voice in the company when decisions were taken. We were very, very few in the starting, so I would walk up in the boardroom and say, hey, no, I don't approve of this policy because this is not customer friendly and I will not have a sign off from CSD on this. And eventually Tata Click grew to be a 600-member team. So yeah, I think the sum of all these learnings is that whenever I was faced with a situation which was perhaps a little different or had no guides or guide rails to it, I envisioned them as an opportunity to grow as an individual, as a professional, and also push my boundaries. And yes, of course, sometimes things, now I'm telling you all the good stories. There have been stories where things didn't work out as planned. But then looking at all of those, you learn and you get experience, which obviously helps you sometime in future. So don't worry if situations do happen which you're not prepared for and you encounter them, because you will obviously always learn something from it that you can utilize later in life. And if you start looking at all the problems as an opportunity to learn, you won't feel that you're faced with such a difficult task. So that has been my time. Thank you.